Okay, so as someone who has done over 150K in a month, what is the reality of actually getting to seven figures? That's the question everybody wants the answer to, right? It comes down to three things. If you can understand these three things, you can get there. It's really just a matter of time. But if you don't understand these three things, you're just going to end up getting caught in the weeds and running in circles and not being able to get to the next level. And it all starts with your emotions, and one in particular is fear. Because the thing is, like, so many people are afraid to not necessarily take risks, but they're just afraid to try things. Again, it's not just fear of losing money, it can simply be fear of failure. And this is something that I don't actually see talked about too much. And I've been working on my own mindset a lot continually recently. And fear of failure is something that I realized I had. And like, it's when you have this fear of failure, you're not willing to try new things. And as a result of not being willing to try new things, you don't find new things that work, or even worse, the things that are working stop working. And what happens if the things that are working stop working? You have nothing. Like, everything stops working, everything's broken, and then you inevitably need to try new things, right? So if you have this fear of failure, this is what it looks like, and this is how it ends. It actually ends up harming you if you succumb to the fear of failure, if you let it win, right? So that's one really big thing. And like, yes, you do. And the thing is, the fear of failure encapsulates or holds within it the fear of losing money. And it can be the fear of losing money. It can be the fear of hiring somebody and letting go of control, right? And then what happens if you let go of control? What are you afraid of? Well, maybe you're afraid of giving this person a task and then they mess up the task and then a client gets angry. It's like, well, sure, that's a valid fear. It's not that the fear is not valid, but are you going to let that stop you from delegating and getting to the next level? That's the question. If you can't get past that fear of letting go of control and something potentially going wrong, which the reality is not that scary at all, things don't really go nearly as wrong as you would expect. And if something goes as wrong as you expect, you're going to, considering how worried you are about things going wrong, that tells you that if that happens, you're going to learn that mistake instantly and then correct it immediately after, and then be well on your way and be able to delegate, be comfortable, know you've got the right person in place, know that problem's never going to happen again, and you'll be fine. But you have to be willing to run into that situation and fall flat on your face. And if you don't, the thing that happens is, well, this can happen. The alternative, things just take forever. Like, scaling takes forever. And you get to where you're trying to go so much slower. Speaking from personal experience, I have made this mistake with fear of failure, more particularly for me with trying new things. I was always excited to delegate and happy to give up control because I'm a very systems oriented and like controlling type person. So if I'm going to delegate something, I know I have a system and I know I'm going to watch the person initially. I don't want to be a micromanager because nobody likes working for a micromanager. I don't want to be a micromanager, but I want to give somebody a system that I built by hand and I know this thing works, period. If it's not working, the person's not running the system effectively. If the person's not running the system effectively, depending on where we're at in the relationship, if it's in the first 2 weeks, I'm going to try to help them implement it correctly and be there and be open to helping them and not be rude to them, right? But if they're failing to run the system and facilitate the system for me that I know works, they're not fit to work at my company. It's that simple, right? And you can just let go of somebody within 2 weeks. I actually haven't even had to do that, and I've actually had people do kind of subpar work, and I ended up looking over their work. It was a VA a long time ago. I had to look over his work all the time, and it was like there was always something wrong. But at the same time, I was paying like $6 an hour. It was like, you get what you pay for to an extent, right? So in any case, if somebody can't facilitate the system, all you have to do is let them go and then replace them with somebody else, right? And if you're afraid to give them some incredible task, don't do it in the beginning and build trust with them before they can do that. For example, when I hired my operations manager, I didn't just toss him on a launch call with clients to do the whole onboarding, right? First, I had him start, taking over the email and then managing ad accounts and teaching him all that. And he was shadowing me on my launch calls, on my onboarding calls, right? He shadowed me 3, 4, 5 times. I had him watch 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 onboarding calls to see how the process goes, to see what issues people run into on the onboarding call. Then from there, I wrote him a completely top-down script for the onboarding call, including little 30-second looms for what goes wrong if somebody can't connect their Facebook ad account, or what do you do in this situation? Because I'd done a bunch of these launch calls, I know how it works, right? And that's where it can be really helpful to know how to do it first. You don't have to do it that way, but if you know how to do it that way and the person churns out of your business, you're not having to rely on someone without a system coming into the business. You have the system, you say, here it is, just run it, right? That's my preferred way of doing things. You can do things how you want to do things. That being said, I had him, do the first part of the call, and then I would shadow him on that and then do the rest of the call. And then I had him do half the call, and then I had him do the whole call, and I was shadowing him. That took 3, 4, 5, 6 calls, four to 6 calls, something like that. By the end, I shadowed him on 2 or 3 calls, and he was perfectly fine. I went, okay, I'm good to go. If he needs me, he can ask me a question, and I'll make sure while he's doing the launch call, I have my Slack open in case he is panicking and needs to type to me or something. But past that point, it was perfectly fine, and I could see that he was capable of doing the job. Now, that's an example in terms of letting go of control, something, again, which I never personally had issues with, and I, if anything, have been more excited to do. But anyway, if you let this fear of failure get in your way, you're not going to get to the next level nearly as quickly as you want to, because at some point you inevitably have to face the fear. You have to. And if you can face these fears, and here's the thing, if you face the fears, in most cases, you're not actually going to run into the problem. And it's oftentimes at least I've found, it's oftentimes some of the biggest fears that you have that you inevitably run into. And that's like the weirdest thing. But if you just go head first and say, screw it, whatever happens, happens. If it has to be like this, it has to be like this. And it happens, right? If you put yourself out there, you're going to run into situations you don't want to be in. That sucks. That's business. If you want to get to 7 figures, you're going to have to get over this at some point in time. So that's the first piece here. The second piece we want to look at here is your spending tolerance. Now, most people want to run ads. The thing is, I've seen this happen. This has happened to a couple of my earlier stage clients. They're doing like 10, 20K a month kind of thing. They come in, they jump on a call with me and they're asking me a question of like, oh, Evan, like, what do I do with my ads? I don't know. One of them's spending like $30 a day, right? The other one's spending like $20 a day. And I'm like, okay, so the guy who's spending $20 a day, he's got an 8x on his ads. The guy who's spending $30 a day has a 5x on his ads. So just spend more money. And like, here's the thing, $30 a day is $900 a month. $20 a day is $600 a month. Right? So a 5x on this is like $5K a month from your ads. It's $4,500 a month from your ads. Right? An 8x on this is going to be $4,800 a month from your ads. Like, for guys who are doing that amount of money and who are trying to, I'm asking them, what are your goals? Like, oh, 50K a month, 100K a month. It's like, okay, dude, well, like, here's the thing. Like, when you're trying to scale, what's more realistic of an expectation, especially when you're newer to running ads, is that your return's going to be lower at scale. Like, these returns are great. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. Like, 5x is like maybe a tiny bit low, but like, it's not bad, right? His cash return's 3x, like, he's fine. But the reality is that, like, at scale, a lot of big people in the space are doing like a 5x, a 4x. So, there are people in the space doing like a 1.7x on their ads, and their revenue's just boosted through the roof because they're spending 150 grand a month. So, like, obviously, some people are down to do that. Some people don't want to do that, whatever. Like, do you care more about revenue? Like, what is it about for you? In most cases, it's profit, right? So, like, if you're going to expect in the beginning that you're going to get like a 4 to 5x in the agency space, which is pretty modest, then okay. Now this is at scale. When you scale more, it's going to cost you, your return on investment is going to be lower, especially when you're newer and less skilled at ads. Your cost per call is going to be higher. You're less skilled at sales and selling to cold traffic, which is more challenging than selling to cold outreach leads. If you don't believe me, try it. And so, you're looking at a 4 to 5x at scale. It's like, okay, so you want to be doing 100 grand a month. You need to spend $20,000 to $25,000 a month to get there on ads, just on ads. You're going to have team costs on top. You're going to have whatever sales rep costs on top, whatever it is. But 20 to 25 grand a month is what it's going to cost you if you're seeing a 4 to 5x to see 80 to 100 grand a month in revenue come out of that. So $20,000 to $25,000 a month is like $600, $700 a day. Compared to this, that's 20 times. 20 times. Right? Like, you got to spend a lot more money. A lot more money. So if you can wrap your head around this and be willing to try it, now don't try it don't start spending $600 a day. I personally, when I started ads, I started at like 110 US dollars a day or something like that. 110 bucks a day, right? Like that's where I started. Starting between $100 to $200 a day is perfectly reasonable. That will get you reasonable call volume in most niches. And then you can practice scaling. Now the thing is, like, you want to make sure you have a good amount of cash in the bank to do that, to be able to take that risk, and to have it be responsible. I talked about that in my last video, so I'm not going to go into all that right now. So you don't want to be stupid about it, right? You don't want to just like take arbitrary risks or uncalculated risks, right? But you gotta play a bit of a different game here, right? Like if you're trying to get to 400 grand a month and you're doing a 4x, you need to spend $100,000 a month on your ads. $100,000 a month spending. And I'll give you a perspective shift on this too. Hormozy with Gym Launch, he was saying that now this was in a different example, but he was saying that they scaled their meta ads at Gym Launch to $2 million per month in spend in a market of 50,000 people. Everybody in that market knew exactly who they were. Everybody was seeing their ads, all of it. $2 million a month in spend, right? And their peak month was something like 8 million or something. I don't know what it is today, so bear with me on that. But like, I know there was a point in time where they were averaging like 5 million a month. So they're seeing like, a 2.5x, right? Now they're like taking serious market share doing that, and that's like a really aggressive strategy. But 2 million a month in spend a month, 24 million a year in spend. 2 million a month in spend is like $67,000 a day. $67,000 a day. Not a month, a day. Okay? So if you want to hit numbers like that, you need to spend like that. That's something that I find is very commonly overlooked, and it's often associated with fear. Now, the last piece is patience. Now, the thing is, a lot of it's actually going to be ads and sales. For most people, again, they're going to be scaling with ads. So knowing that you're scaling with ads, like I said, cold traffic is harder to close objectively. It is objectively harder to close than someone who you've had 3 touch points with before the call, who feels that you personally reach out to them and that they're special and you reached out to them for some particular reason, right? Even though you might be doing personalized cold outreach on a mass level, right? Like, it is just simply harder to close. So let's say you launch your ads and you see a 3x. 3x rev and your cash is like, a 2x. What is the wrong thing to do? Kill the ads. What is the right thing to do? Optimize. All you got to do is look at your numbers. And like, this can take months. This takes months. Literally, it takes months. Like, there's no way around it. Like, I've spent like tens of thousands of dollars on ads with 0 return, losing money to prove a new offer, and then it clicks. So if you're willing to try new things, right? Test a new offer, spend a good amount of money, and be patient, that's where you see big numbers. My goal is to spend 50, 100, 200 grand a month on ads as soon as possible. How long does that take? I don't know. I want to make sure I can handle it operationally and not run into huge problems. But that's my goal. That's what I want to do. And I'm still just optimizing. I'm not even spending that much because I want to optimize. And kind of like I talked about here before, I'm building that system. Once that system is built, like, my system's already working, but once they're optimized, right? Then it's literally it's just a matter of spend more on ads, hire a sales rep, spend more on ads, hire a fulfillment person, spend more on ads, do the same, spend more on ads, do the same, spend more on ads, do the same. Spending more on ads, how do you do that? Well, you just write more ads and test more ad audience combinations with more money and you find more winners. There's a lot of waste involved. It can be sketchy. You may not be good enough at marketing to reach a certain level. So you might just have to live and breathe writing ads for a little while. Right now, I'm living and breathing sales. My ads are working smoothly. I just want to make sure that my sales process is optimized. And right now, my sales process is, so far it is optimized, but right now, I'm going through a price increase phase personally. So everything's locked in for me, but I just want to increase prices to boost my cash collected. And then from there, it's like, okay, fulfillment's already pretty good, but let's make sure fulfillment is really, really good. And then at that point, let's hire a fulfillment person, spend more on ads. And like when you're the owner of the business, your close rate's going to be high. So a lot of people, they don't want to take sales calls. And like, I get it, especially if, I've been in a place where like, it's just exhausting if you're taking a billion calls and all this. So, I don't blame a lot of people for that. But if you can't live with the challenge that is taking, potentially thousands of sales calls over the course of years to get insanely good and be able to pull, something like, turning this into something like, an 8x rev and like a 4x cash, for example, just because it's optimized and you're closing at like 40%, for example. Like, think about this, right? You have an 8x rev, 4x cash, depends on what your cost per call is and so on and so forth. But like, imagine you're spending 20 grand a month and these are your numbers. You're spending 25 grand a month, these are your numbers. Now you're doing 200 grand a month instead of 100, just because you've optimized. But it might take you a year. I'm committing to doing this for like a good 6 to 12 months. Just practicing sales, practicing every single handler, role playing, watching calls over, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Just do it over and over and over again, right? So be willing to try new things and let go of control if that's an issue for you. I just know it's a common issue. Be willing to spend more money where it makes sense and be patient throughout the process. And like, be willing to take a year to prove an ad system and just keep constantly testing. Because like a lot of people will hit this point and they'll just kill the ads and like go try something else and be like, oh, it doesn't work. Well, it was actually kind of working. Especially if you're at a 2x cash, you can spend more on a 2x cash within 30 days. But anyway, so yeah, there's that. I'm currently scaling with a low ticket call funnel where I'm selling a $30 to $200 low ticket product, pushing those people into a call and then upselling on that call. So you're liquidating your ad budget, you're warming people up, you're building trust, and then you're upselling them into your high ticket service. If you want to do that to grow your business, you can book a call with me in the description. Ideally for agencies who are exceeding about 10,000 a month in revenue, 10 to 50 to 100K a month or so. That's kind of my bread and butter spot for that funnel. If you're new and you're like trying to get to your first 10K a month, I do have a private group that I work with, really small scale calls with like 5 people on them at a time, like really chill, personal kind of interactions. If you're interested in that, you can also book a call with me at the link in the description. Otherwise, just click whatever's popping up on screen here, and I will see you there.